Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive? Today we are taking a look at something really, really interesting. We're going to be talking about AI, economics, and competition.
Ooh, that's a big one.
It is a big one, and we have some pretty incredible source material for this.
Ooh,
Yeah, we've actually got notes from a university course
wow.
called AI, Economics, and Competition.
So this is like cutting edge stuff.
Yeah, this is like inside baseball. This is not something that, the average person on the street would have access to.
Definitely not.
So I'm excited to dig in. I don't know about you, but one thing that really jumped out at me right away was just this whole idea of the competition in the AI world.
Yeah,
Not just in terms of performance, but also price. Like everyone wants to have the smartest AI.
right?
But it turns out that affordability is a huge factor.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the big things that's highlighted in this source material. I mean, the cost per million tokens, that's basically how much processing power you get for your buck. It's becoming a major battleground.
I can see why that would be.
And one company, DeepSeek, they're really shaking things up because they're significantly cheaper than, say, OpenAI.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're talking like 27 times cheaper in some cases.
27 times. That's a lot.
It is.
That's got to make the other companies nervous.
It does. It really changes the game because now you have smaller businesses, startups, even individual developers who maybe couldn't afford OpenAI's models, but now they can access these powerful AI tools through DeepSeek.
So what is OpenAI doing about that? They're just going to let DeepSeek take all their customers?
Well, they can't ignore it, right? So the source material talks about how OpenAI is exploring different pricing tiers. They're looking at partnerships
Okay.
to try to stay competitive, but DeepSeek is really forcing them to kind of rethink their entire business model.
It's fascinating how these economics can really drive innovation.
Oh, absolutely.
So DeepSeek, they're the disruptor here. We've talked about price, but they're also doing something pretty interesting with their model transparency, right? They've got this model, I think it's called R1, where
Yes.
it's very much an open book.
Yeah.
So tell me, what's the big deal about that?
So traditionally, AI models have been kind of these black boxes. You feed in data, you get results, but you don't really know what's happening under the hood.
Right.
DeepSeek is challenging that with R1 because they're basically laying bare their entire reasoning process.
Oh,
So
wow.
you can actually see how the AI is thinking step by step.
So it's not just about getting the answer, it's about understanding how you got there.
Exactly, and this has huge implications because for developers, it means they can understand the model's logic better, they can debug it more effectively, and for users, it can build trust.
Makes sense.
They can actually see what's going on, so they're more likely to trust the AI's decisions.
So DeepSeek is basically betting that this open approach is going to give them an edge.
That's right.
It's a big bet. It's a bold bet.
It is.
Some people might say that a little bit of mystery makes AI more, enticing,
Sure.
a little bit magical.
Almost like it's this wizard behind the curtain.
Right.
But DeepSeek is saying no. In a world where AI is becoming this really powerful force transparency, is actually more valuable than mystique.
Yeah, and you can see how that would be a compelling argument, especially as AI becomes more powerful and more pervasive in our lives.
Yeah, exactly.
We want to know what's going on. So we've got this competition happening on multiple fronts. Price, transparency, and of course, just raw AI power. And speaking of power,
Yeah.
our source material actually talks about this arms race to build bigger and better AI models,
Hmm.
which obviously takes a lot of computing power.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where we get into the era of what they call megalusters, right?
Yes, these are basically data centers on steroids. I mean, we're talking about huge warehouses bracked with tens of thousands of GPUs all working together.
It's hard to even imagine what that looks like.
It's mind-boggling. And everyone from DeepSeek to OpenAI to Meta to even Elon Musk's XAI, they're all building these facilities.
So what kind of challenges do you run into when you're building something on that scale?
Oh, man. I mean, just the engineering challenges alone are incredible. You've got to worry about power supply, cooling, networking. Just keeping all those GPUs in sync
Yeah.
is a feat in itself. And then, of course, there's the cost.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
These things require massive upfront investment, and the ongoing operational costs are enormous.
So it's not just about having a great idea for an AI model.
No,
You got to have the resources to build the darn thing.
absolutely. That's where the economics really come into play.
For sure.
These companies are making huge bets on the future of AI.
Yeah.
And it remains to be seen which of these strategies will ultimately pay off.
And it's not just about the tech itself, right? Our source material also mentions how things like U.S. export controls, limiting the types of GPUs that can be sold to China, for example,
Right.
how those are also playing a role. So it feels like this AI race, it's not just about algorithms and who has the smartest AI, it's also about geopolitics.
Oh, absolutely. It's all intertwined.
It's fascinating.
Access to the most advanced hardware is a huge advantage in the AI race, and governments are starting to realize this. So you have this really interesting interplay of technology, economics, and national interests,
Yeah.
all shaping the direction of AI development.
I feel like we've only just scratched the surface here.
Yeah.
But before we dive any deeper into how these AI models are actually built and trained,
Okay.
maybe we should take a quick break. We'll come back and talk about some of the mind-blowing innovations that are happening in the AI world.
Sounds good. So before the break, we were talking about all this money pouring into AI research and development.
Yeah, it seems like everybody's trying to get a piece of the pie.
But it's not just about, throwing money at the problem.
Right.
There's some really, really incredible innovation happening in the background, like in the actual architecture of these AI models and how they're being designed to handle more and more complex tasks.
Yeah, the source material we've got actually goes into some pretty fascinating technical detail about that. And there's this one concept that I found really intriguing. It's called mixture of experts, or MO.
Yeah, Mo is really cool because it addresses this fundamental challenge in AI, which is efficiency.
Okay, how so?
Well, as AI models get bigger and more powerful, with hundreds of billions or even trillions of parameters, it becomes really computationally expensive to use the entire model for every single task.
I see. So it's like if you have a giant toolbox
Right.
with every tool imaginable, but you just need a hammer.
Exactly. You wouldn't lug the whole toolbox around with you.
Right.
So Mo is kind of like that. It divides the model up into these specialized experts, each one trained on a specific type of data or task.
Okay.
So when a new task comes along, the model can dynamically activate only the relevant experts, kind of like on an as-needed basis.
So it's only using the tools that it needs for that specific job,
Exactly. It's much more efficient.
which I imagine saves a lot of processing power and cost.
It does, and it also potentially allows for even greater specialization within the AI model itself.
Interesting. So you could have experts for language translation, experts for writing code, composing music, analyzing medical images, all within the same model?
That's the idea. It's this idea of modularity and specialization within the AI itself.
That's pretty mind-blowing when you think about all the different tasks that AI is being used for these days.
It is, and the possibilities are really only just starting to be explored.
So Mo is one innovation. The source material also mentions something called latent attention, or MLA.
Yes.
That one sounds a bit more technical, I gotta be honest.
It is a bit more on the technical side, but the main idea is still efficiency.
Okay.
So traditional attention mechanisms in AI allow the model to focus on the most important parts of the input data,
Right.
but those can be really memory intensive. MLA is a way to kind of streamline that process.
So it's like taking a huge stack of documents
Yeah,
and highlighting only the key sentences so you can get the gist of it without having to wade through all the details.
that's a great analogy, and it's really crucial because as these AI models get bigger and bigger, we need these types of optimizations just to make them practical to use and train.
So speaking of training, I'm curious about how these models actually learn. I know reinforcement learning, or RL, plays a big role,
Right?
but it seems more like something you would use to train a dog, like teaching it tricks.
Right, I get what you mean, but RL is actually a super powerful technique for training AI to achieve specific goals.
Okay, so how does that work?
So basically, you give the AI model a task, like writing a poem, for example,
Okay.
and then you give it feedback on its attempts, rewarding the good ones and penalizing the bad ones.
So it's learning through trial and error, but at a much faster pace than a human could.
Exactly, and what's really fascinating is that through this process, AI models can start to develop these emergent reasoning behaviors. Like they start solving problems and making decisions in ways that we didn't specifically program them to do.
So it's like they're coming up with their own solutions.
In a way, yes, it's both really exciting and a little bit unsettling.
Yeah, because it raises these questions about control and unintended consequences.
Absolutely, but that's where the human element comes in. We need to make sure we're guiding these AI systems in the right direction.
So it's a partnership.
It is, and the source material emphasizes the importance of human feedback in shaping AI behavior.
Okay.
Techniques like RLHF, where the AI learns from human feedback, are becoming super important for making sure that AI systems align with our values and that they're being used for good.
So we're not just letting the AI run wild, we're providing guidance and oversight.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the whole idea of the competitive landscape. One of the most interesting things is that lower compute costs are actually leveling the playing field, allowing smaller companies and startups to get in on the action.
So it's not just the big players anymore.
Not at all. We're seeing a real democratization of AI tools and resources, which is leading to this explosion of creativity and experimentation, and that's putting pressure on the big companies to keep pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, I can see how that would create a more dynamic and competitive environment.
Absolutely. It's like a healthy ecosystem. Competition drives progress, and ultimately everyone benefits.
But the source material also talks about this tension between open source and closed AI models.
Right.
That seems like a pretty fundamental divide.
It is. You have DeepSeek with its MIT-style open weights, championing transparency and collaboration.
Okay.
And then you have companies like OpenAI being more protective of their intellectual property.
So it's kind of like the debate between open source software and proprietary software.
Exactly. Each approach has its own pros and cons.
Right. Open source allows for more community involvement and faster research, but there are concerns about misuse
Right.
and malicious actors exploiting the technology, whereas closed models offer more control and security but can stifle innovation.
It's a delicate balance for sure.
It is. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the software side of things, but we can't forget about the hardware. You know, those massive mega clusters we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah.
The source material goes into some really incredible detail about the challenges of actually building and managing those data centers.
These facilities are like engineering marvels on a scale that's really hard to comprehend.
Yeah, I was trying to picture it earlier and my mind just kind of boggled.
I know it's wild. We're talking about tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of GPUs all working together.
Just imagine the heat generated by all those processors running at full speed.
I'm starting to sweat just thinking about it.
Yeah, so what kind of innovations are being used to keep these things running smoothly?
Well, they're using everything from advanced liquid cooling systems to these cutting-edge interconnect technologies that allow all those GPUs to talk to each other at super high speeds.
It's incredible what they've been able to accomplish.
It really is, and the scale of these projects is only going to increase.
And the source material mentions that we're moving from megawatts to gigawatts of power consumption for these data centers.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. These mega clusters are becoming major consumers of energy, which raises all sorts of questions about sustainability and environmental impact.
It's definitely something to consider.
It is AI has a lot of potential benefits, but it's not without its costs, and we need to be mindful of that.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, talking about the software, the hardware, the economics, the geopolitics. It's clear that AI is a complex and rapidly evolving field.
It really is, and it's impacting so many different aspects of our lives.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to step back and think about the bigger picture.
Yeah, what does all of this mean for us as individuals and for society as a whole?
That's a great question, and I think it's one that we need to keep asking ourselves as AI continues to develop and evolve.
I agree. This is just the beginning of the conversation.
Okay, so we've been digging deep into this world of AI economics and competition.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It has, and I think one thing that's become really clear is just how quickly this field is moving,
Oh, yeah. It's evolving at lightning speed.
and the impact it's going to have on our lives is potentially enormous.
Absolutely. This isn't just some niche tech sector anymore.
Right, it feels like AI is going to touch pretty much every aspect of our lives.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, it's important to zoom out a little bit and think about the bigger picture, the economic and geopolitical implications of all of this.
Yeah, the source materials we've been looking at really emphasizes that global ripple effect of AI.
It does, and we've talked about, the U.S. trying to limit China's access to advanced AI hardware.
Right.
But the competition goes much deeper than that. It's about who's going to control this incredibly powerful technology.
It feels like AI is becoming this new battleground for global influence.
It is. Countries are starting to realize that leadership in AI is going to translate into real economic and strategic advantages in the future.
I mean, think about it. AI is going to affect everything from manufacturing and automation to finance, healthcare, even military capabilities.
It's like the space rates of the 21st century.
Right, exactly. But instead of rockets, it's algorithms and data centers.
And while countries are jockeying for position, companies are also making big moves.
Yeah, like OpenAI's Stargate project, that's a pretty ambitious undertaking.
It's massive, a multi-phase plan to build this 2.2 gigawatt data center dedicated entirely to AI.
That's insane.
And it's not just about the physical infrastructure either. They're creating this whole ecosystem with partnerships like the one with Oracle.
So they're trying to establish themselves as the dominant player.
They're definitely aiming for the top spot, and they're not alone. Meta, Google, Elon Musk's XAI, they're all pouring billions into AI infrastructure.
It's a gold rush.
It is, and it's having a ripple effect on the entire economy, not just the tech sector.
Yeah, how so?
Well, the source material points out that these projects create jobs, they stimulate research and development,
Okay.
and they even affect energy markets as these data centers become huge energy consumers.
It's like a whole new industry is being born.
In a way, it is. It's a fundamental shift that's changing the economic landscape.
It is, but with all this talk about competition and who's going to be the AI superpower, it's easy to forget about the human side of things.
That's a really important point.
We can't lose sight of the fact that AI is ultimately about augmenting human capabilities.
And the source material actually emphasizes the importance of human oversight in AI development,
Yeah, we talked about RLHF, where AI learns from human feedback,
right?
but it's bigger than that. It's about making sure that these incredibly powerful technologies are aligned with our values and used for good.
Exactly. We can't just unleash these systems into the world without thinking about the consequences.
It's like we're raising these incredibly gifted children with immense potential, but we need to guide them, teach them right from wrong, and help them channel their abilities for the benefit of humanity.
I love that analogy. It really captures the challenge we're facing, and that's why these conversations we're having about AI are so important.
Absolutely, we need to demystify AI, understand its complexities, and grapple with the ethical and societal implications.
Because this technology is here, it's evolving rapidly, and it's already reshaping our world.
It's been an amazing journey exploring all of this, and I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too.
But I think the biggest takeaway for me is that this is just the beginning of the AI story.
It is, and we're all going to be writing the next chapters together.
That's a great way to put it. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI economics and competition.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it as fascinating as we did, and we encourage you to keep learning, keep exploring, and keep asking questions about this incredible technology that's changing the world around us.